Hello, my name is Samuel Martin from Universidad Politécnica de Madrid. And I have two questions. One is, okay, I think, as you said, I think this is very good, but what about if you follow? This is a very good initiative that covers the part of having a universal assistive technology, let's say. But the problem on the other side, on the content service application developers that do not abide by accessibility requirements is still there. And we may have a user interface that is portable and that you can carry everywhere. But if you find that contents, application services are not made do not abide by accessibility requirements, do not comply with guidelines that we will still need, we will still find that problem. So that's it's mainly a digression more than a question. What do we do with that, even though we may have a public common infrastructure? And the second question is that I have seen today perhaps that this is a different approach to ubiquitous accessibility from the one I used to know here in Spain from the INREDIS project, or at least this is what it seems to me. In INREDIS, users take the interface with them everywhere where they go, and then their interface can interact with the products that are available to interact with that in INREDIS portable interface. In MPII, on the other hand, the preferences are stored on the cloud, and the user doesn't keep anything with him or with her, but the interface is automatically personalized at the devices. So I think that both of them have their advantages and their drawbacks, but I would like you to go deeper into that difference and how could those different approaches cooperate or interact or improve one to the other, etc. Thank you.
Okay, on the first one, content. Basically, to say it in shorter form and see if I get it right. NPII is about better tools that you can carry around with you to access the content, but no matter how portable your tools are, if the content is still a brick wall, you have a hard time accessing it. So what is NPII doing about the fact that which is focusing on user tools, what is it doing about the fact that what you're trying to access may be very inaccessible? A couple things. One of them is, first of all, you're correct that in your characterization, NPII is about giving the user better tools, not about forcing somebody else to make more accessible content. If you have a stable set of tools and you have a more universal set of tools or built off the same base and more compatible, then it's easier for mainstream to be able to make their content work with those tools because there's less of a variety out there. Secondly, we do support things like crowdsourcing where people can create templates so that part of your tool set when you go to a website is that you show up at the website with a template for making that website more accessible. So even if they didn't mark up the website, you carry a set of markup with you. And that's a user tool. You could say that, well, gee, they should just put it on their site. And the answer is yes, they should. But if they don't, what? There's also in the back of my mind this dream of this long-term. Anybody want a grand challenge? And we're going to put this grand challenge up. And that is to create something using artificial intelligence, machine vision, etc., that can take the image of what is on the page, pixel image of what's on the page, and reconstruct semantically what is being presented. And the goal is that if you can make a page that 50% of you can't ever match the top half of the human population, okay? But if you make a web page that the bottom half of the human population can understand, then I'm not sure that we can't make a machine intelligence that could handle it. So we'll see. The problem with this, which I think is doable, is that by the time we do it, they won't have HTML static pages anymore. We'll end up with websites that are more like television shows and live interaction. And then, God help us, trying to have machine intelligence deal with real life. But maybe we'll get there too someday. That's a sidetrack, though. We're not going to stop any AT development hoping that that's going to show up anytime soon. But it would be a really great, like, moonshot, something that the country could launch on, and it would advance machine vision. And so I'm going to really try and challenge it to our National Science Foundation that they create a whole program just to do that because of all of the science it would create, which is what they like. The second half had to do with INREDIS and NPII. I will look to Jose here to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think INREDIS was looking at a number of things, and part of it was to explore to see where we should be going. And I thought the conclusion included not only universal remote console kinds of concepts, was what you're talking about. I take my interface around with me and I can use it for any device I hit. But also the idea of bringing access down and using cloud computing. And, correct? Perfect. And NPII, if we go back to the one diagram in the PowerPoint that I went quickly over, so it's no fault that you didn't follow it. But here's this one. We talk about the fact that we have many different models. And one of them is that you just have, model one is that you have a user agent that's just more powerful. And this has to do with the web, but let's generalize it to IT in general. So this would be the old model that we use today, which is you have AT and a browser or an accessible browser or a talking browser, and you just access the internet directly. Model two is that you access the internet directly, but every now and then you run into something that you can't handle. A CAPTCHA, a diagram, you're trying to compare two computer models, and so you find a chart that says, and the title of the chart is Comparison of Model A to Model B showing relative efficiency. And you go, or speed, or whatever, and you go, yes, that's exactly what I want to know. And the alternate text for it says, chart comparing Model A and B sufficiency. And so you're dead. So you take this and you send it up to some assistance on demand or something, and it comes back to you with a Model A is 20% better than Model B. Or you have a chart and it comes in and it's in red and green, and you're red-green colorblind, so you send it up and it does a color shift and it comes back down, and now it's in gray and dark gray, or brown and dark brown, because everything looks brown if you have red-green. Or you could have it where you actually have AT in the cloud, which is Model 4. So, I mean, you have all these different models. One of the things that we talk about is Universal Remote Console. Within that, as a matter of fact, one of the key partners we're going to be having on it is also the lead architect on Universal Remote Console. And so you can carry around either a physical universe, but you may also carry around a virtual one. Remember the one we had of the really simple web chat and browse? That's actually a web app that is like a universal remote interface to those functions. And you can change it so that it would do any email app or and it could still look the same to the user. So we have that concept as well. So actually, in comparing our notes, and again, it's not completely a surprise since we've been communicating with each other at the same time we've been doing all of these evolutions of both of these. The very nice thing is the synchronicity, a slightly different emphasis and things like this. And with NPII, we were looking for broad, and INREDIS had a question it was trying to answer, so it was a little more narrow, and we were more of talking about assistance on demand and other kinds of things. But the fact that the two just lined up and reinforced each other, and we found the same thing. There are a lot of others, and you in the audience, who may say, "Yeah, well, I wasn't looking at the whole thing of NPII, but this part of NPII that deals with what I'm doing is in perfect harmony with what we've been finding and what we've been talking about needing to see, etc." And so the NPII is so much someone's idea as it's a confluence of all of the work. And seems to really resonate. It also, by the way, has been fine-tuned. Every time someone comes saying, "I'm working in the area, and this is really right on, but I didn't see this aspect," or "but this seems a little off," and then we sit and talk, and we tune up NPII, and it's that much better. So each week, NPII looks smarter and better than the week before because somebody smarter and better brought some more to the team and shared it, and collectively it is smarter and better. I really like sitting up here like this because I look like I'm a genius to have thought of all this stuff, and it's not. It's this collection, but I carry it around and I get to present it, and as a result, I look downright brilliant, but it's just a facade. Other questions?
We have
Three more questions. Okay.
The first one is if a user has a temporary disability, for example, he breaks a hand or whatever, can the user or the system change his preferences temporarily?
Actually, anybody can have multiple preferences. Many of you know people who in the morning have completely different abilities than the evening. I know people who walk around without anything in the morning, and by the evening they have to use crutches or a wheelchair. I know people who, when they're sitting upright in their chair, fully braced and at a workstation, they have all sorts of abilities, but when they're not in their wheelchair, if they're in an easy chair or they're anywhere else, their ability to operate a keyboard or anything else is totally different. So we need to have preferences, multiple preferences, and we need to be able to tune them over time. If you break your hand, you don't want to get rid of your preferences. What you want is a new set that you can use temporarily and that you can then get rid of at the end and not have to go back, although you may tune yours as you come back. So yes, we see very much the preferences. In some respects, the preferences, and I didn't mention this, but I'll throw it out there for you. When I asked you what the preferred volume of the show that you watch are, you'd say, well, usually about here, but it depends on the show. But it also depends upon what's happening in my house. If the kids come in, from outside, and then I got to turn the volume up for a while because I know that there's just going to be a lot of noise, sitting there yelling and talking, whatever, and stuff till they settle down to whatever they're going to do, and I can turn it back down again. Well, the same thing happens for people who have low vision. There's not a font size that is the right font size for them, all right? But with the preference profile, they would come up and it would get close to something that they can now use. And we would also have a little control panel. And this little control panel is different for everybody, but it has just the controls they want to. So, for example, on your remote control for your television, you have a volume control. Everyone has a volume control because everyone wants to adjust the volume while you're watching TV. But do you have a contrast control on there? No. I mean, there's lots of other settings in your television that are buried in the menus because you don't have to use them very much. But some you need all the time, like the volume control. And so this would give you an interface where the person not only would have a custom interface, but they would have a custom widget that would always be close by that would give them those 2 or 3 controls that are most important to them. A person who's blind may have speed and volume, because it turns out when they're reading some kinds of materials, they just crank it all the way back up. And then all of a sudden they hit something, they don't understand it. just like when we read, they want to be able to easily get that speed